point on that is because if I could give feminism the most generous definition, I would say that feminism is a women's advocacy movement.
Yes.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with women's advocacy. However, you can't say that it's an equality movement.
It's an equity movement.
No, it's not any of these things. Feminism...
Also, feminism isn't a monolith.
Well, okay, I'll get into that. But basically, feminism is a women's advocacy movement. In its most generous sense, nothing wrong with women's advocacy. However, you cannot deny that feminism is a man-hating ideology.
I can deny that.
Well, what is the core tenet of feminism? The patriarchy theory. Agree or disagree?
Not necessarily.
Is it a tenet of feminism? Is patriarchy
to some
theory,
people, yes. In some sects, yes.
Do you believe in the patriarchy?
Yeah.
Do you believe in the patriarchy theory?
Patriarchy theory being that it exists?
Sure. I mean, there's a
yes,
patriarchy
I believe that the patriarchy
theory.
exists, yeah.
Well, I would, as far as theories go, theories are not fact, and I would say that...
Well, it does, we don't have to really theorize. Only 25% of, this is today, only 25% of who is in Congress, I mean, we've never had a female president, but 25% of who's Congress is female, and that's today. That's in 2023.
That's another apex fallacy. You're looking at the top tier of men. Here, you want to take a look at who occupies the top positions of society. The CEOs, the politicians.
Yes.
But here's where feminists you don't consider that men occupy the worst positions in society. And I'm not just talking about in jobs.
Ivan Jr. donated $100. Berry's past has her so screwed up. She has issues with masculinity. Her words hate men. Her narrative is painful to bear. Wish I was there. Women are emotional manipulators, and the femme movement further damaged the nuclear family. I'm a man and I have self-control.
You can tell your audience has a lot of sex.
I mean, that's an ad hominem attack. It's, basically the feminist 101. Oh.
I mean, it was actually a passive-aggressive retort, but...
Fair enough. Okay, so we were talking about patriarchy.
Yeah. You're saying it was a fallacy.
No, what was I saying, actually?
You were saying that what I was saying was a fallacy, that 25% of who is
apex fallacy,
yeah.
Yes. So you don't consider that men occupy the absolute worst positions.
I do consider that.
Right, but this idea that
has nothing to do with that a patriarchy exists. So a patriarchy would be a state ruled by men. Primarily by men, which passes off power to other men, which is what we have lived in.
That's not true. Passes off power to other men.
Yes.
No,
and male interest. And because of bias, that's why on the Supreme Court we want people from different backgrounds, is because people will come in with their biases. If most of the people who are in charge of the free world are men, their biases are going to be for men's advantage. They're not going to think about women. They're not going to think about mothers. They're not going to think about females.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we recently elected a woman to the Supreme Court, and you talk about the patriarchy and you talk about men. However, if I sort of have a sense of where you're getting at, if we're talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned, there are more women who are pro-life than there are men.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women who are pro-life.
I think everyone gets very caught up in the abortion debate. I think that's a whole nother, that's a morality issue.
I don't want to really go too far there, but a lot of women will say, well, the overturning of Roe v. Wade and trying to stifle women's access to abortion, that is the patriarchy. That is men imposing their will. However,
do you think the patriarchy well,
this is a comment.
Because you're a smart guy.
I know where you're going with this.
Patriarchy doesn't just live through men. We all feel it. Women can be misogynist. Men can be misogynist. The patriarchy can live through women.
So, women who are women, are you saying
women
they uphold the patriarchy? Look,
yes.
Do we currently live in a patriarchy?
Yes.
Under patriarchy, are women oppressed?
Yes.
Under patriarchy, are men oppressors?
Yes.
So are you oppressed?
In some ways.
How?
I think that I mean, we talk about the sexual revolution. I think that one form of oppression that all women face is subjugation in the form of their sexuality. I think that women are forced to perform their sexuality. I think that women are forced to...
what do you mean by perform their sexuality?
Like, I think that women become sexual objects in the eyes of the patriarchy. I think that a lot of men view themselves that way, and I think that a lot of women are comfortable viewing themselves that way, in turn objectify themselves and objectify other women. I think that in a way that men are just not.
Well, that sounds like zero accountability to me, but
I don't think so at all. I think that I'm the first one to take accountability of what I have done for that.
well, you're putting the blame on men for women sexualizing themselves.
Yeah, in a patriarchy, the blame would be on men.
Well, I feel like you can't really win with feminists. Either we're trying to stifle women's sexuality,
It
or
takes
we're
teamwork.
encouraging it. But
It takes teamwork. I think first men need to see women as human and they're others, not their inferior others. I think if men stop using...
Most men don't view women in that way.
I would disagree with you. But that's
that's
a bias.
Isn't that a bit of a sexist statement to make? That you think
That
most
I think men are sexist? Yeah.
Well, I suppose in some ways. So you said you were oppressed. How were you oppressed?
I just talked about that. I talked about sexual subjugation.
But are you currently sexually subjugated
Yes, certainly.
by your fiance?
By my fiance? No.
Well,
I think that there are individual players. When we're talking about an ideology, when we're talking about a political ecosystem that's different than individuals, right? I've already bit the bullet that I don't think every man is patriarchal, but I think that
You
the
think most
society
are?
rages. I think that we are less so now than ever before. But I think that we are raised with patriarchal values. So men need to either unlearn that or they don't.
Unlearn what? What do
Patriarchal values.
Which are what?
That men are the head of the household, that women should be submissive, that women are incubators, that women are fuck toys.
Well, I don't think men necessarily have that view. But so just on your first thing, you're talking about a traditional relationship dynamic where men are the leaders of their household. But
That's a Christian, Judeo-Christian relationship dynamic. That's not necessarily like even a naturalistic
bro, these chicks are so
relationship
bored.
dynamic.
It's so funny, bro.
I just think I think everything is too.
No, they're loving this shit.
Everything's
No,
too.
one guy that literally
hate
said
it.
like
Everything's too black and white. Like if we just it's
Like, this
so
is gonna go
dramatic.
nowhere,
Like it's
I
not
don't-
that dramatic. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's a good. I think it's a good conversation, though.
No,
I
it
think it's a
is.
good
But I'm
conversation.
saying the reason why it's like that, and like you guys are
also a
coming at each
panel.
other, is because it's so
Yeah.
black and white. If you live in a lot of people think in the gray. You get what I'm saying?
Sure. Okay. So it's just interesting, though, that you bring up that point, because men are in a position where, like, a lot of even feminist liberal women will have an expectation of men to lead.
I know,
So-
and I think that that's diluted. I think that that's not feminism. I've seen videos where a woman will call herself a feminist, and then you ask her who should pay on the first date, and they say, "Well, him." That's not feminism. That's patriarchy.
Well, right, but so
that's how feminism is.
but that kind of goes
But
back
those
to my
are
whole
women
thing
who are
about equality.
who are misnomering themselves as feminists. That is not feminism.
Well, there's
not equity. That's
That's
not
a no
equality.
true Scotsman fallacy. I mean, well, that's
You
not,
are a
that's
little
not,
debater. What, did you take debate in high school?
doesn't matter. But no true Scotsman. I mean, basically, you're saying, well, that's not actually true feminism. But
Sure.
look,
That's also anecdotal.
sure. I mean,
That's not, you're shadow boxing is what you're doing. I don't think that. My form of feminism doesn't think that. I believe in gender abolition. I believe in gender equality.
I'm not sure what gender abolition is.
It means none of this it means there are two sexes.
Oh, okay.
Amen.
Are you a TERF?
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to finish my point really quick on equality. So I was basically saying I don't believe it's for equality, feminism. My most generous definition of it is it's a woman's advocacy movement. I actually think it's a misandrous, man-hating movement that also happens to do.
You
Hold
speak
on.
like it's a monolith, and it's not.
It pretty much is.
No, it's not.
Because
Pretty much is.
Well, here's why. Okay, feminism is in every single. Feminism has seeped its claws into pretty much every single realm. The mainstream media, hold on. The mainstream media. Relax. The mainstream media, journalism, news organizations, academia, corporations, governments. It's all feminism. Every single university of every single higher education, whatever, college, university in this country has either a feminist study, a gender studies, or women's studies program in this country. You know what they all teach? They all teach the patriarchy theory.
Sure.
It teaches that men as a class are oppressors and women as a class are oppressed. That if you teach someone, if you teach a whole swath, whole generations of people that they are oppressed and the other gender is to blame for that.
You're very anti-critical race theory, is what I'm hearing also.
Well, I suppose, but I don't really get into that in this podcast. But you often hear this term system or systematics. Systemic, right? I mean, I don't know of any greater system than the higher educational system in this country. And like I said, hold on, but every single, in fact, it's a graduation requirement for a lot of people to take some sort of feminist study class, Feminism 101. And what they're taught in these classes, and the majority of people who go to college are women. It's like 60% women who go to college. Hold on, let me just finish. So
I'm going to
throw
up.
So you basically have women who are going to university, being indoctrinated in this man-hating ideology, which is feminism. It is a man-hating ideology, and many.
I don't think that's feminism. I think women are gaslighting each other into believing that that's feminism. I think that is reactionary. I think that's reactionary feminism.